Good evening, good evening, good evening. I have to admit, I really miss seeing you in person. I miss what I used to call Horizons Night of 1,000 Hugs. But I'm every bit as grateful to you for joining us tonight. Thank you. I also want to extend special thanks to Dora and Soshito, tonight's Gala co-chairs, for your leadership. And also to Doughty and Tim, Horizons' warm, wonderful, and immensely competent board co-chairs. Less than 2 weeks ago, Horizons Foundation announced our 4th round of funding to help our community to cope with the pandemic, whose end remains out of sight. Now, some might say, wait, wasn't COVID last year's story? Well, of course it was, but it's also this year's story. And not only because people continue to die, but also because our community, the LGBTQ community, continues to face stark challenges from this pandemic. Think with me for a moment about the LGBTQ senior who, for their own safety, may have to live in painful isolation day after day, or the transgender person who may be on the brink of losing their housing, or the queer immigrant who's been shut out from so many relief programs. They are not last year's stories. Nor can this be last year's story when we know that Black, Latinx, and other communities of color have suffered such grave and disproportionate impacts. That is why for Horizons, this isn't last year's story, it is right now. And I believe that that says something truly vital about how Horizons looks at the world. We don't just show up when crisis hits. We don't check a box and move on. We are there again and again and again, because Horizons is of, by, and for this community. We always have been, and we always will be. We don't just follow the headlines or go where the spotlight might be traveling. We go where our community's needs tell us to go. We go where our community's dreams tell us to go. We have always known that our community's road to full dignity and justice will be a long one. Liberation doesn't happen overnight, and LGBTQ history, or any history for that matter, doesn't move in nice linear patterns. Nor is progress inevitable. We need to look only at Texas's draconian SB 8, or the attacks against transgender people in state after state after state, or the continued violence from law enforcement against Black and other communities of color. Progress, deep change, takes time. It rises from the work of years and years, the work of generations. And that is why Horizons Foundation was not only one of the very, very first to make grants to fight AIDS, to win marriage, to invest in LGBTQ organizations based in communities of color and transgender communities, but we have kept on funding, and we will keep on funding and fighting until, in words of Horizons' vision statement, all LGBT people live fully and freely. This is the great work of all those who have come before us, and it is our work right now. And it's in that spirit of history and of honoring, that I want to remember a few of those whose journeys with our community came to their ends this past year. Horizons board, my staff colleagues, and I all salute two of our community's towering philanthropists, Al Baum and Jim Hormel, for their immense contributions and for the inspiration that they have given to so many. I also want to remember those who may not have had their public profile, but were no less dedicated. People like Jan Sobel and Susan Vandenberg, people like Morton Blatt and Peter Holmstrom, all of whose legacy gifts are supporting our community right now. And those gifts will continue to support our community for generations to come. There is one thing that these people, these remarkable people, all held in common. They loved our community. They loved the LGBTQ community. And when you get right down to it, when you dig down beneath it all, this community is about love. Of course, freedom to love whoever we want has been a core demand since day one. But there's more. Love forms the bedrock of this community. Love is what links us together in all of our magnificent diversity. And let's be clear, love and community aren't just some feel-good emotional buzzwords. They are what give our movement power. They are what give our community strength. They are what drive our resistance, our resilience, and our insistence that in this community, nobody gets left behind. That's what Horizons Foundation has been doing for the past 4 decades. As many of you know, we celebrated 40 years last year. And now as we look towards Horizons' 5th decade, we see a decade of creation, of building, of aiming for goals that our founders could truly only have dreamed of. Recently, Horizons Board adopted a new strategic plan. And that strategic plan begins to give shape to what that future looks like. And it is full of ambitious goals: to double our community grant making, to identify and secure at least $250 million in future legacy gifts for our community, to launch a new multi-year $1 million plus initiative to bring urgently needed resources to some of the most vulnerable and marginalized parts of our community, to create new ways to support LGBTQ donors and to expand your impact, and to ensure that diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging are embedded and live at every level of the foundation. We know these are big goals, but they're what our community, our historic, beautiful, fractious, beloved community need and deserve. And I know that we can reach these goals because of the hundreds of amazing LGBTQ organizations we partner with every year. I know because we truly do perch on the shoulders of giants, and every one of those giants has put their shoulders to the wheels of our liberation and our freedom. And I know because of you and because of everyone who shares our vision. Your gifts make incredible things possible. You made it possible for Horizons to be there when COVID struck immediately and to be there right up to the present day. You made it possible for us to bring nearly $2 million to LGBTQ organizations through our National Give Out Day this year alone. You made it possible for us to invest in organizations that are advocating for and serving our community in every county of the Bay Area and far beyond. You made it possible for us to bring together hundreds of donors and community leaders and to continue to build the resources that future generations will need in order to win their battles and in order to build the LGBT community of the future. For making this work, this incredibly important work possible, thank you. For showing up yesterday, today, and for the long haul, thank you. For working fervently alongside us to create a kind of world that our forebears would be so proud of, for your love of our community, for joining us in our vision of a world where all of us are truly, finally, and forever free. Thank you. And lastly, for joining us here tonight in this moment of celebration and unending commitment. Thank you, thank you, thank you.